Now, if you play video games, or even know video games for that matter, then I don't really need to explain to you what Mario is. I mean, he's one of, if not the greatest video game series of all time. And, I mean, there's solid entries on every Nintendo console to date. However, you might be asking, what if you don't own a Nintendo console? Well, if you happen to own a Sega Genesis, then I think I got you covered. Hello, my friends, it's Pori time, and today I'm going to take a look at Mario Bootlegs on the Sega Genesis. Now, I own in my collection 5 Mario Bootlegs for the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive if you're so inclined, and you're in luck, because we're going to look at all 5 of them today. Now, from a collector's standpoint, there isn't really a correct way to collect bootlegs. You'll get these games and probably even more goofy bootlegs via EverDrives and emulators, but I'm old-fashioned and I like sticking a cartridge in the console, so these are all bootlegs from Russia, and they all come in teeny cute little game cases. They're so delightful. These are definitely my favorite bootleg games in my collection, so let's dive in. Now, I want to be fair. Before I go too hard on these games, it's important to note that these games, as well as many other weird bootlegs that exist, primarily exist in places where they did not exactly have access to official releases of games. Places where they couldn't just go to the store in the 90s, buy Super Nintendo, and buy Super Mario World. So while I will be critiquing these games, let it be known that they're more fascinating than anything. And here's the first game on the chopping block. It's Super Mario World. No, not that one. It starts off fairly simple. The origin of this hack is clearly from Russia, which makes sense as Russia didn't exactly have easy access to video games. Many children had to keep afloat via bootlegs on the Famicom and the Mega Drive. The game itself actually looks pretty good. They somewhat resemble the All-Stars version of Lost Levels, or Japanese Mario 2 if you prefer. However, the mechanics are completely different. Mario can pick up boxes in this and shoot fireballs, which are in limited quantity. And you can't jump on enemies either, they just hurt you. The Mario enemies are all there, but the mechanics aren't really at all, like sounds like jumping and stuff. I mean, you can't even break blocks or anything. But this game didn't originate as a Mario game, however. Not that a bootleg on the Sega Genesis really needs to be validated as a legitimate Mario game, but just so you know. The game was originally a game by a Taiwanese game company called GameTech. GameTech with a C, by the way. It's not the same company that produced Jeopardy Sports Edition or anything, sadly. Originally released in 1995 as Squirrel King. Essentially, it's a bootleg that's taking inspiration from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on the NES, and with its mechanics, it does kind of become pretty obvious. A year later, and as far as I know, unknown source turned it into this. Each world has 3 or so levels within each of them, and the third one always ends with a boss fight. Bowser actually looks pretty nice in it for being a bootleg game, and you just throw boxes at him until he dies, as you avoid him rushing at you. Second world is more of the same. I just love how in the underground stage you can literally just hop to the top and just keep jumping over the entire level. I love me some cheese. Bummer that there's no warp zone in here, despite it bearing a resemblance to World 1, 2, and Super Mario Bros., but hey, beggars can't be choosers. After the first 2 worlds, though, the game gets weird. The level style dramatically changes to what I assume to be the original Squirrel King levels. Honestly, though, they're a lot nicer, and they just kind of remind me of Little Nemo Dream Master or something. The colors are vibrant, and it's pretty to look at. This stage then leads to what I would probably consider to be the worst boss in the game. I mean, it's this overly happy pig that's just like, flying around. Like, why are you so happy? I don't get it. Sometimes he'll do this like annoying rolling attack, which is incredibly difficult to dodge. After all that nonsense, it's not so bad though. The next level you go to is hell. Yeah, Mario goes to hell for killing the happy pig, and you fight an ostrich with shades and a hard hat that's riding Wheelie from the Kirby series. I can't believe that combination of words just came out of my mouth. But at least he fights the same way the Bowser battles did, which is harmless enough. The next level is a waterfall. Wait, what? Yep, They stole the Donkey Kong Country theme. Amazing. The level actually looks pretty nice too, but it gets kind of annoying, especially in the vertical segments. And quite honestly, let's be honest here, anybody who doesn't absolutely know what they're doing should probably shy away from making vertical levels ever. Period. I like the steroid birds though, that's an A+ enemy. I can't stress enough how much I dislike the vertical part, however, but that is the worst the game gets. So, silver linings. It's a guessing game of trial and error some of the time, and if you miss a jump, sometimes you're just screwed. And the final boss of this world is a green paraplegic rhinoceros that rides around on a tank and is for some reason wearing a collared shirt. Jesus. The following level is a spooky haunted house sort of level, and the aesthetics kind of remind me of Castlevania, which is way cool. I love the spooky levels, they're my favorite. The final boss is this weird ghost thing with horns. It's harmless enough though, it's not bad. The obligatory factory levels after that, there's not much to say outside of some of the background pieces being mistaken for platforms, but that's kind of a nitpick in the grand scheme of things. The final boss is a pink elephant that looks like he's going to engage in a dance number. This fight's actually pretty terrible too, but I got incredibly lucky on like my second try, so I'm not going to argue with it. And with that, I have beaten Super Mario World. All of that for an enemy roll call that I can't read because Russian, and a credit scroll that I can't read because Taiwanese. But it's not a terrible game at least, so cool. Next on the grind is Super Mario Bros. 2. Not Super Mario Bros. 2 or Super Mario Bros. 2, but Super Mario Bros. 2. I like that the box art just steals the Super Mario Bros. Deluxe artwork, and the cartridge is just ripped off from Mario 64 DS. That's gonna be a recurring trend with these, by the way. The cartridge for the previous game was just the new Super Mario Bros. Box art. Now, despite the title, it's actually just Mario 1 on the Genesis. It was also released by GameTech with a C in 1998. There's not too much to say about it, except it's fast, and due to it being fast, it's kind of have a lot of unfair deaths that happen to you. This game plays kind of how anxiety feels. It's a noble effort though, it looks good, and besides being perhaps a little too speedy, it plays just fine. I guess blast processing will do that to poor Mario though. An interesting thing is that the warp zone pipes are backwards in World 1 2, and they don't actually specify where you go. Also, for some reason, you can jump on piranha plants. Check out my favorite move in the entire game. God, that's satisfying to do. The game isn't designed perfectly, however. For example, in the World 4 castle, you need to pick the correct path to get through, like, you know, some of the castles in Super Mario Bros. Make you do. However, the correct path has a fire bar that you literally cannot avoid. Yeah, if you don't have a power-up to damage boost through this part, you literally cannot beat this level. Oof. Not much more to say about this one. So that last game was Mario 2. Well, how about Mario 3? A completely unrelated game. This game was released by a little-known Russian company called BMB. And no, they never made a Mario 1 or 2 as far as I could find. The opening cutscene presumably tells the story, but since I don't know how to read Russian, it's anyone's guess what the plot is. The game looks fine. Most of the graphics are just pretty much lifted from pre-existing Mario games, but oh man, the physics. Physics in this game are, put it nicely, horrendous. Jumping is such a disaster, and it's not precise at all. The level design doesn't really help either, causing some pretty unfair deaths. The game over screen is also pretty great. Pretty sure it's a stolen image though. The audio is interesting. The music played in the stages is honestly really good, but for some reason it stops after you get to a certain part in the level every time. I'm not sure if that's an issue with my specific game or if it's an actual game developer flaw, but either way it's a shame because I actually like the music a lot. Another weird thing pertaining to the music is that it seems to be 5 or so random music tracks that play on seemingly shuffle or something no matter what stage you're on. Mario also makes an interesting sound when he dies. That's a nice sample you got there. They also have a nice jingle for if you hit an enemy. That sounds familiar. I mean, it's an effort at least, but this is not the first game I would recommend to anybody trying to play some Mario on the Genesis. Sorry. And from the creators of Mario 3 Around the World comes Mario 4, A Space Odyssey. Not to be confused with 2001 A Space Odyssey. I also really like that both of these games unapologetically take box art from the Mario Galaxy games. The game is essentially just a hack of Mario 3. It plays the same, looks pretty much the same, even has the same music and sound effects. The levels are slightly better designed maybe, but that might not be saying much. The game over screen is yet another presumably stolen image of Mario dying. Once again, I really can't recommend either of these games. And last but not least, we have the fifth and final Mario bootleg I own on the Sega Genesis. This time around, we're going to be playing Super Mario World 64, complete with stolen New Super Mario Bros. U artwork.
It's me, Mario!
Hey, nice audio sample. The game opens up with a title screen ripped directly from Super Mario All-Stars, and well, this game is just trying to be Super Mario World on the Sega Genesis. It looks just like the game, which is nice, but the physics aren't quite there and the audio is a little weird. The game is glitchy, however. Not that it's surprising that a bootleg game would have glitches, but man, it gets weird sometimes. For example, I died once in this first level because the game just felt like crashing. Of course it tries to trick you at the end of the level with a random poison mushroom. What is this, Mario Maker 2? Well, I don't think that's supposed to happen. Whoa! Yeah, I think when it's to the point that I'm warping around the level, that's when we call it quits. The universe of bootleg games is just so fascinating, and our favorite characters being represented on consoles they never appeared on is just intriguing. Are these games good? Not particularly, but some of them are decent, sure. I think the fun of finding these treasures isn't playing a good game, but rather the adventure of finding these oddities that are just somehow lost to time. People took their time and created these, and thanks to these people in places that might not have had easy access to official Nintendo consoles can play these games. There's few things more interesting to me than the oddities of our favorite game consoles. What are some of your favorite bootleg games? I got more to come, and until then, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya. Hello my friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I'd like to give a special shout out to Bootleg Games Wiki. I'll have the link in the description down below. They help me learn more about these oddities, and I would especially like to thank anybody who is listed here that supported me via Twitch or via Patreon. You guys are wonderful, and without you, I don't know where I would be. You guys keep this show afloat. Thank you so much. You're the best.